Okay, so generative AI has absolutely exploded into our lives, right? And, nowhere has that shockwave been felt more than in education. It promises this total revolution in learning, but at the same time, it's kicking up these huge fears about widespread cheating. So, what's the real story here? Is AI this massive threat to academic integrity? Or is it the most powerful tutor a student has ever had? Let's dive in.
First things first, we have to talk about the narrative that has pretty much dominated this whole conversation from day one. And that narrative, well, it's one of panic.
I mean, you've seen headlines just like this, right? The story we're told is simple and, honestly, pretty alarming. Students now have this magic button that just does their work for them, and academic integrity as we know it is basically over. It's a really compelling story, but it's also a very, very narrow one.
What if I told you that, yeah, cheating is a real concern, but the way most students are actually using AI is so much more constructive and, frankly, a lot more interesting than those headlines would have you believe? Okay, so let's push past the panic and actually look at what the data tells us about the students' reality. I think the numbers are really going to surprise you. According to a recent survey from Studiosity, a staggering 82% of students have used AI for their schoolwork. Just think about that. This isn't some niche tool for a few tech-savvy kids anymore. Nope, it's now central to the academic experience. So the crucial question isn't if they're using it, it's how. And boom, here's the answer. This data from an Inside Higher Ed survey shows the top uses are not about outsourcing work, it's about augmenting it. You've got 55% using it for brainstorming, 50% using it like a personal tutor they can ask questions to, and 46% using it to help them study for exams. This paints a completely different picture from the whole cheating panic narrative. This quote from Allison Abeldault, a student at Kansas State, just brings the data to life. She used AI tools to break down these super complex topics in an insanely difficult pharmacology course. And the result? She got an A. So for her, AI wasn't a shortcut, it was a bridge to actually understanding the material. And this isn't just some abstract idea. Here's a super practical example from CU Denver, where they're teaching students to turn AI into the ultimate study buddy. It's simple. You feed it your notes, your readings, and instead of just spitting out a summary, it challenges you by generating practice questions. You test yourself, you find your weak spots, and you do it again. I mean, that's the definition of active learning, not passive cheating. It's a powerful way to build knowledge that actually sticks. Now, this doesn't mean AI in the classroom is some simple, perfect solution. Of course not. Like with any powerful new tool, its impact is complex, and it creates a whole new set of challenges we really need to get our heads around. Learning expert Scott H. Young frames this perfectly. He calls AI a double-edged sword. On one hand, it's amazing. It can remove all that pointless friction in learning. But on the other hand, it can also remove the necessary effort. The actual struggle that builds deep knowledge in our brains. So let's break that down. Unnecessary effort is the bad stuff, like struggling because of a poorly written textbook or having no one to give you feedback. AI is fantastic at fixing that. But necessary effort, that's the good stuff. That's retrieving facts from memory, practicing skills, really wrestling with an idea. The danger is that a student might use AI to skip right over this crucial part of the process and undercut their own learning without even realizing it. And what's really fascinating here is that students themselves are totally aware of this tension. A majority, 55%, say AI has mixed effects on their critical thinking. They get it. They know it can help sometimes, but it can also make them think less deeply at other times. They are navigating this double-edged sword in real time. And look, this isn't just some intellectual puzzle for them, it's an emotional one. 2/3 of students report feeling anxious about using AI. They're worried about accidentally plagiarizing, and they have the same concerns as educators about cognitive offloading, which is just a fancy way of saying they're afraid of outsourcing their thinking to the machine and weakening their own mental muscles in the process. So you've got this complex reality, widespread use, huge potential, and real anxiety. What's the path forward? Well, it turns out students have a very, very clear answer. This is where it gets really interesting. When you ask students what drives cheating, the top answer is the incredible pressure to get good grades. Okay, makes sense. But then, when you ask what they want from their colleges to solve this, the top answer isn't a crackdown. It's education on how to use AI ethically. Students aren't asking for policing, they're asking for guidance. I mean, this chart just makes it crystal clear. Over half of students want education. Now compare that to just 21% who support AI detection software. The message could not be simpler. Teach us how to use this tool responsibly. Don't just try to catch us using it. And this feeling is echoed by educators like instructor Martha J. Wilkeson. She argues that banning AI is just futile. It's not an option. The only real path forward for educators and institutions to embrace the technology and guide students on how to weave it into their learning in a powerful, ethical way.
And that brings us to our final section, which is all about reframing this whole conversation. Because this isn't really about a single tool. It's about the future of learning itself.
Amidst all this wild technological change, Scott H. Young offers this crucial grounding reminder. AI is new, sure, but our brains are not. The fundamental principles of how we humans learn, through effort, through practice, through retrieval, they haven't changed at all. Technology can help that process, but it can't replace it.
So here's the bottom line. The great challenge of our time isn't just about acquiring information anymore. It's about learning how to think, create, and solve problems alongside these incredibly powerful new tools. The question was never really whether AI is a threat or a tutor. The reality is, it's both. The real question is, how will we all learn to navigate that duality?